What happened? Oh no, what is this?
The horror anthology is much loved and has an established pedigree across all forms of entertainment. From Twice Told Tales by Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1837 to Clive Barker's Books of Blood in the mid-80s,
Oh
with
shit.
the likes of Blackwood, Poe, and Lovecraft in between, short story horror writing has long been a popular format. Largely regarded as the first published horror anthology, Twice Told Tales is a collection of mostly previously published stories from The Token, an annual illustrated gift book published in Boston.
Okay.
The author of Twice Told Tales, Nathaniel Hawthorne, was born on July the 4th,
Big
1804, in Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem,
His
of course.
great-great-grandfather was John Haythorne, a Puritan, and one of the judges who
Puritan.
presided at the Salem witch
Pilgrim.
trials of 1692. In 1842, Edgar Allan Poe reviewed Twice Told Tales for Graham's magazine, concluding that Hawthorne was a man of indisputable genius. By this time, Poe, also from the state of Massachusetts, had already written his own collection of short stories for publication.
Yes, he did.
This collection, titled Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, was published in 2 volumes in 1839.
That's so crazy how the stories are still here
And
today.
after also writing many short stories for newspapers and magazines, Algernon Blackwood's first publication, The Empty House and Other Ghost Stories, was released in 1906. Blackwood went on to write such classics as The Willows and The Wendigo, which was first published in another anthology, The Lost Valley and Other Stories, in 1910. Fast forward 74 years to 1984 and the first publication of Books of Blood. Each book was a collection of horror stories written by British author Clive Barker, the first of which catapulted Barker to legendary status in horror writing, with Stephen King proclaiming him the future of horror. Several of the stories from Books of Blood have been adapted successfully for film, including Raw
Hold up, that's
and The Midnight Meat Train.
I know.
Barker adapted The Yattering Jack in 1986 for use in George A. Romero's anthology TV series Tales from the Dark Side.
George A. Romero.
I take it you will remain.
Short-form storytelling arrived on a new medium in 1938 when the radio show The Mercury Theatre on Air broadcast an adaptation of Dracula.
I have never seen Count Dracula by day. At sunrise, at the first cockcrow, he is gone.
The series was the creation of Orson Welles and John Houseman and became most famous for its broadcast of War of the Worlds, which terrified listeners, believing that the alien invasion was a reality.
That's crazy.
Radio drama series Suspense broadcast
fake radio lines. That's crazy.
On CBS Radio for 20 years, often featuring some of Hollywood's leading stars. Initially, the series seldom used material that would be classified as horror, fantasy, or science fiction. But
Lucy.
in the late 50s, this became a regular occurrence, including material such as H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror. One episode, The Hitchhiker, broadcast in 1942, featured a performance by Orson Welles and was later adapted for an episode of The Twilight Zone in 1960. 1947 saw the debut of Quiet Please, a radio horror and fantasy series created by Willis Cooper. Cooper had been a writer for Orson Welles' Campbell Playhouse, which had succeeded the Mercury Theatre on Air.
Which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and features Ernest Chappell. Quiet Please for tonight is called Camera Obscura.
The play's scripts often broke the fourth wall by speaking directly to the listener, a technique much adopted in later horror anthologies. In his book, Terror on the Air, Horror Radio in America, Richard J. Hand wrote that Cooper had enjoyed creating roles for the audience, including in the action of the story itself, indicating a clear desire to create horror as interactive entertainment more than 70 years ago. The show ran for 2 years. Forward 50 more years in radio, And in October 2010, we
That's,
see the debut of Larry Fessenden and Glenn McQuaid's radio show, Tales from Beyond the Pale. Successful genre filmmakers in their respective rights, the two began producing episodes under Fessenden's studio, Glass Eye Pix, influenced by the works of Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, and Orson Welles. Fessenden would later partner with the show's sound designer, Graham Resnick, to write the scripts for Supermassive Games' critically acclaimed horror debut,
Until Dawn.
And for the first game in their Dark Pictures horror anthology, Man of Medan.
Until Dawn's a movie now. Like a real movie. It's crazy.
In film and TV, short format horror has been successfully represented many times since The Twilight Zone in 1959.
Oh my gosh.
Created and presented
Iconic.
by Rod Serling, The
Iconic.
Twilight Zone ran for 5 seasons on CBS from 1959 to 1964.
And they've still ran to like fucking the 90s, bro. For like 30 years.
Often disturbing events. Serling's introductions.
You know
and
what?
conclusions
You should
to the
write
show
stories. I want
summarized the story
to be
and
creative and
provided
write
some
stories like
justification
this.
for the events and often
Get
the moral
crazy.
of the story. In 2016, Rolling Stone placed The Twilight Zone at number 7 in its list of the greatest shows of all time.
I agree. Hey, it should be up there.
1972
That's
film,
iconic.
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales
is
from the
highly
Crypt.
regarded by fans of the genre. Starring Peter Cushing and Joan Collins and featuring Ralph Richardson as the Crypt Keeper, it is an anthology
Crypt
film
Keeper.
based on stories from EC Comics and one of several Amicus horror anthologies produced in that decade. And in 1989, HBO launched a horror anthology series under the same name, also based on EC Comics, which ran until July 1996. 1982 saw the release of Creepshow.
Creepshow.
A dark comic horror anthology film directed by George A. Romero.
Oh, they get into the nitty
Influenced by
gritty.
and a homage to the material from the EC and DC comics of the
Oh
1950s.
my gosh.
Its entirely original material was written by Stephen King, and it is a somewhat tongue-in-cheek expression of the horror genre.
I remember learning about all of this shit.
25
I couldn't
years
tell
on,
you this
and in
shit.
2007,
I couldn't tell you this
Trick
shit.
or
Look at
Treat presents
yeah.
another set of horror shorts as a dark comedy horror anthology film. And then, in 2012, a very
VHS.
different anthology film with a very different tone, VHS. Created by Brad Miska and Bloody Disgusting, an American horror genre website and film production.
They talk about Jordan Peele.
VHS
Yeah.
is a much darker horror anthology film, comprising 6 short horror stories and linked by a found footage theme. 2 of the stories, Second Honeymoon and Tuesday the 17th, were written and directed by Ty West and Glenn McQuaid. Other examples in film and TV that are more than worthy of mention are Roger Corman's 1962 anthology, Tales of Terror,
I don't
based
know
on
that.
3 Edgar Allan Poe short stories and featuring Peter Lorre, Vincent Price, and Basil Rathbone. The 1963 Italian horror anthology,
Like
Black
Sabbath.
Sabbath,
Yeah.
narrated by Boris Karloff.
Thought that was a band
The
or
TV
something.
series Night Gallery, a spiritual successor to, or certainly a close relative of, The Twilight Zone, fronted again by Rod Serling and focusing more directly on horror, which ran from 1969 to 1973. Stephen King's Cat's Eye of 1985.
Before
John
my
Carpenter's
time.
1993
Still.
film
Body
Bags,
Bags.
featuring the likes of Sam Raimi, Wes Craven, and Mark Hamill, and
Wes Craven.
Southbound, a 2016 road trip horror anthology by
What
a
is
number
this?
of the collaborators on VHS.
What?
From written fiction through radio,
Southbound or
cinema,
Roadbound? What
and
did it say?
TV, and now video games.
I don't wanna press
Horror
anything.
Anthology is a format that both creators and horror fans enjoy. And it's a format that has existed for almost 200 years. Long may it continue.
To be continued. Yo, that was dope. That was dope. We don't need nothing from you. That game was good too. All right, man. Man of Medine. Well, overall, I like the game. it was the first one, so of course there's gonna be some updated bits in the other games, which is cool. I mean, it is cool. I get it. Story though, actually kind of cool. Very slow in the beginning. Oh my gosh, it's very slow. But it did have a couple good jump scares though. It did speed up in the middle of it when they got on the ship. I'll give you that. Um, Story they get kind of unbelievable. Like how they still gonna be like kidnappers on a ghost ship, bro. They all know it was a ghost ship, and they were still trying to be like, "Oh, move your ass." No, nah, shut up. Anyways, but I digress. Out of 10 though, out of 10, I gotta give it a 7.7, dog. Like it was good, it was great. I ain't gonna lie, it was cool. But there's a couple things lagging there, especially in the beginning. It was very very slow, very slow. Um, but yeah, overall it was just cool. It was just cool. It was. I think the other games were better because of their stories. Well, not the Devil in Me. The Devil in Me. That story was not believable at all. But okay, cool. This one is kind of believable, but they didn't call it the shipwreck or the plane wreck. Really though, I would think like they would do that. I mean, yeah, and still they would still go down there and be like, oh shit, but they would call it in. Like you would have. Um, and then the ship, like bruh. Why when they was on the other boat, the smaller boat, the Duke, the the head kidnapper Olsen had Fleece, the captain, send a call out, knowing damn well and be like, "Yo, we're being kidnapped," blah blah blah, all of that good shit. Why would he just do it himself? Like, who cares? Just about the weather, like that was just stupid to me. Um, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's still. I mean, it was a good game, a good story, more believable than others. But 7.7.